Hello everyone, today I want to show you how to make this wire Kumihimo braid where I've also added in some beads to it, and it looks like this. So I'm using a copper wire, fine gauge, and then I'm adding in some silver spacer beads to give a nice twist effect to the piece, and then I just turned it into a bracelet. So this is what I'm going to show you how to make today. So if you want to learn how to make this, then just stay tuned. So to make this bracelet, these are the things that we'll need to create it. First off, I'm using my round Kumihimo disc here because we're making a round braid, and then the wire that I'm going to be using is this, and this is a fine gauge wire. It's about 0.4 mil in thickness, and we're going to be using multiple strands to thicken up the braid, and it's just a copper wire that I'm using. And then I'm using some silver metal spacer beads here. They're about a 3mm, and I just thought the silver and copper would go nicely together. And then here I have my Kumihimo ends, so my little bell ends like this. And I'm just going to use those to finish off the bracelet at the end, and then obviously add whatever findings you want as well. So let's get all these things together and then let's get started. Now what we need to do is cut our wire first, and what I have here is I have 16 lengths of 1 meter each, and that's what we need to use, because what I'm going to be doing is 4 lengths of wire in each slot, working as it's one length together, but we're going to be doubling these over because it's 1 meter. What we're going to do is double them over. So first off, all your wires are at the ends together, on both ends, and then you want to pull both ends together like this, to then find roughly the middle up here. And then what I'm going to do is make a little loop, and this is actually what we're going to use to then also attach the weight. So I'm just going to put my finger there, or just something else, and then just twist it once or twice. Just like that, and then we have a little loop there. And then you have all your lengths of wire here, and now they're doubled over, so that means you have enough for all your working lengths of wire to attach your Kumihimo board. So you need, this is a basic 8-strand braid, and we're using 4 lengths of wire in each slot. So these are lengths that you need, and you need to get this end ready like this, and now what we need to do is attach it to the board. So I've now separated out all my wires and I've placed it onto the disc. I've just put the loop through the middle there, the hole in the middle, and then so that's coming out towards the back there. And then all I've done is I just used the dots on my disc, so don't worry about the numbers because this is just a basic 8-strand braid, so it's not too difficult or anything. So all we do as well is we just want to then start making the braid just like we're working with cord. Now what I just want to say is, because obviously we have these long lengths now, and working with wire is a little bit different than working with cord, because you obviously need to be careful with it kinking or bending or something, whereas cord, kind of, you can do whatever you want with. You can get tangled, but then that's about it. This can get tangled, but also then get a bit kinked. So you want to be careful not to do that, because it can damage the wire. So what you can do is use something like bobbins and roll them up if you want to, if you feel comfortable working with that. That'll avoid some of the tangling and the kinks and that. But personally I prefer to work without the bobbins on this, because what I want to do is add the beads as I go. You can also preload the beads and then use bobbins, it's completely up to you, but I just prefer to do it as I go because I like to kind of keep working with my wire. When I'm moving my wire on my board, I keep kind of smoothing it out like this, and if I had bobbins on, they would kind of get in the way of that. But that's completely personal preference, you can definitely do that if you want to. Now what I'm also going to do with this braid is I'm actually going to work with a weight on the back here to help kind of pull it through, and it'll help make it a little bit more even as well, and just a little bit easier to work with. So what I'm going to do is get out my Kumihimo weight, so it has a hook like this. If you don't have a weight like this, I'm going to put a link in the description box to where you can get them, but also you can just use something else, like a bit of a bag, like an organza bag with some coins or something in it, or some small stones, and just attach it to the back. That's completely fine as well. Just something to help kind of pull your braid down as you work with it. I'm just going to take this and then just use the hook on it, and then just put it into that loop that we already made with the wire. So that was the purpose of making that loop, just to make it easier to attach the weight. So now that we have that, we're now ready to start making the actual braid. So what I'm going to do first is I just want to make a little section of about maybe 1 centimeter or 2 of where I'm just using the wire before I start adding in the beads. I just always like to do that when I use beads on my Kumihimo, whether it's wire or cord, just to give me a little piece to finish it off at the end. So you want to just do that first, and we want to start out We're then making our braid. And what I'm going to do is I normally start with my top left one and bring it down. So I take my top left. Remember we have 4 lengths in each slot, but just work with them as if they're one length. So I take that and bring it down, and then my bottom right one and bring it up like that. And that's where I just like to keep kind of smoothing my fingers over my wires as I'm moving them, and also it separates them out to avoid them getting too tangled up. So that's that one. Turn it for the next one. Separate it out, the strands you're using, and then just smooth it before I bring it over. Bring it over, guide it with my finger, and then pull it down. And that's just how I like to work with it. And the bottom right one, bring it over and smooth it out like that. Turn it again, and you just want to continue like this. So this is just how I work with it. You could also easily, if you work differently, if you start say from the left side, or the right side, sorry, and bring it down, and then the bottom left one and bring it up, that's completely fine as well. You're just going to be working in the opposite way really, but it'll work just as well. So whatever comes natural to you is absolutely fine. So we just want to keep doing this for a little bit, and then you'll start seeing a bit of a braid here of your wire forming in the middle. So now that I just have a little section of my braid there with just the wire, you can see it on the back coming out, then what I'm going to do now is start adding in the beads. And this is where I'm using these, and I'm just using the copper wire, and then I'm using these silver spacer beads. I just thought it would go nicely with the 2 metals. And you can, like I said, you can preload them if you want to. I'm just going to grab one at a time and add them as I go, just because I feel it gives me a little bit more control. So what I'm going to do is I'm always going to put it on the same strands. I'm going to show you that as we go. But what I'm going to do, my next one is this one, top left one that I was going to bring down. So I'm going to grab that and put one of these beads on all the wires in that slot. So on all 4 wires. So you just want to get them all 3 a bead like that, and then let it fall all the way down. And this is just like if you do Kumihimo, beaded Kumihimo with cord, you want to let it drop all the way down to the middle there, and then you want to make sure that it tucks underneath all the wires that are crossing over in the center. And then when you bring the rest of these wires over to put them in the bottom, you want to make sure that that bead stays underneath those wires. So that's how you want to do that. And you want to do the same on the other side here. So grab another bead, and then my bottom right one is the one I'm going to take now. I also want to add a bead to that. So again, just taking your bead, putting on all 4 strands in that same slot, just like this, and then bring it up, let the bead drop all the way down, and let it tuck in under everything in the middle, and then bring it back up the wires like that. So that's our first beads added. So I'm going to go to my next pair now, and here I'm not going to add any beads, so I'm just going to continue with the braid with just the wire. So bring that across the middle and then down, stay on the left side, bottom right one across the middle and stay on the right side like that. And then turn it to the next one. So I've now moved on to the next pair here, and then again this is where I want to add on a bead. So I put my bead onto that top left one, left strands of wire, and then I let it drop all the way down. And then what you want to make sure is when you add your beads is it still tucks underneath the wires in the middle there, but it also sits on top of the previous bead. So you probably want to kind of push it in there and make sure it sits in the right place like that, and then do the same with the wires from the bottom here. So add your bead to the bottom wires and let that drop all the way down as well, and again make sure it stays beneath everything, all the wires in the middle that are crossing over, but that you tuck it in so it goes on top of the previous bead. So the beads are actually sitting right on top of each other, but they're still staying underneath the wires in the middle. So that's your next beads added. And then we move on to the next pair. Turn your disc, and then just again grab your top left one if you're working the same way as me, bring it down, and this is just without beads, and then your bottom right one and bring it up like that. Move to the next pair, and again we want to add our beads, and you just do the exact same thing. Add your beads to that strand that you're adding them to, and then make sure you tuck it underneath the wires but on top of the bead that's already there. So that's how you want to keep going. So if you want to preload your wires with beads, what you want to do is choose the pair that you're going to add your beads to. So in my case that's the top and the bottom one that I'm doing now. So you would just put your beads onto all these 4 lengths or strands of wire, and then you can put your bobbins on if that's what you want to work with. That's completely up to you, but those are the strands of wire that we're putting beads onto. The other pair we don't put beads onto at all. So I've now kept doing my braid here, adding my beads as I go, and then now I've reached the length that I want my bracelet to be. So all we need to do now is just repeat the other end. So I'm just going to keep the braid going the same way, just without adding any beads now. We're just going to do a little section of braiding just with the wire and no beads, just so we have a little end section to be able to finish it off. And then once I've done that, I have a little section there. We can now take the braid off of the board here. And because this is wire, we don't need to worry about the braid coming undone or unraveling. So just take it off. You don't have to worry about tying a knot or anything. And then here we have the length of braid with beads on it. So it's ended up looking like this. And because of how we added the beads to this braid and we're using the wire, you get this twist effect on it, which gives a really nice effect. And then all that's left to do now is finish off both ends here so we can turn it into a bracelet. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to use these Kumihimo ends, these bell-shaped ends. And you put your braid in there and a bit of glue, and also the glue that I'm going to use is this E6000, and that's really nice and strong and it dries clear as well. So I really like using this, and I'm going to finish off my Kumihimo ends, especially with using wire now as well. You want it to be really strong glue. So what we need to do is we need to just finish off one end at a time, and what I'm going to do is grab this end and then kind of split all the wires into 2 sections like this, and then just pull them apart. And then before we cut anything off, I'm just going to go around the very top part of the braid here just a little bit, just a little bit extra security, but also just to fill it in a bit, because the Kumihimo ends here that I'm using, they're just a little bit bigger than the actual wire braid itself, but they fit perfectly once you reach down to the beads. So these are about 7 to 8 millimeter in diameter. So take both of your sections here, kind of wrap them around just a little bit, not too much either, because you still want that part to fit inside the end. So something roughly like this, and then I'm going to take my wire cutters and then go in and cut off all the wires in one section at a time. Like that. And there we've gotten rid of all the excess wires, and you can just check that that'll go inside your Kumihimo end here. So like this. So now what we need to do is start using the glue. So I'm going to get it out and then just open it up, and then what I like to use is just a regular toothpick here, just to help distribute the glue to go where I want it to. And then grab the one Kumihimo end there, put a bit of glue onto my toothpick and just put the glue away, and then get that glue inside the Kumihimo end there. You get a decent amount. You don't want to get too much, because obviously the braid is actually going to go inside there and fill out the space. So you just want to get enough to cover all the sides and the inside here. And then also I'm going to get a bit extra glue and then actually just go around the outside of the end here that we got ready, and then just get a little bit in between the wires, because that's a good part about, we've used loads of small wires here and then made the Kumihimo braid, so you have loads of kind of crossing wires, so the more stuff where glue can get in between, basically it's going to make it even more secure. So just get a bit of glue in here as well, and then once you're happy with the amount, get your Kumihimo end and place that on there. And then you might have some glue that spills out, don't worry too much about it, you can wipe it off. If you have any, you can also let it dry. If you see you have any when it's dry, you can just peel this glue off as well, so it's brilliant for that. So you can tighten it up and neaten it up really nicely. And just press it down. And then you want to let this dry until it's completely dry. And then it's going to be nice and secure there because it's a nice and strong glue. And you obviously want to do the exact same thing with the other end as well. So now that I've put my Kumihimo ends here on both the ends of my braid, and I've reached the length that I want it to be, I've also added my extended chain and my clasp now, just for easiness. And then what we need to do, the only thing left, is really to make sure that this stays in the shape that we want it to. So you just can take your fingers and then gradually start working it in a more of a rounded oval shape to fit around your wrist. So just gradually start from the middle and work your way outward. And then obviously, because this is small gauge wire, what you'll find is that it won't necessarily bend and then just stay in place where you bend it. It has kind of a give to it, so that's why you kind of want to do it gradually like this. And then eventually it'll then stay in the shape that you want it to. Then obviously you've got then the clasp, lobster claw clasp here, to secure it in place as well when you wear it. And then you have your finished bracelet here. And then it sits really nice on your wrist, and the beads on here, the twist effect, gives a really nice effect to the whole piece. So that's how you make this bracelet. So I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, and thank you very much for watching. Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make this wire Kumihimo bracelet. And this is what it looks like. Obviously this is just the design that I've chosen to go with, but you can change it up if you want to. This is just showing you the technique. So if you want to learn how to make that, then stay tuned. And here are the things that you're going to need. For this you'll need your round